This is the front wheel off a 1939 Royal Enfield 500 Model J, and it was back in early August, I think, or even perhaps before that, when I took my one and only ride on this machine after getting it running and supposedly roadworthy. But I was in for a shock when I approached 35 miles an hour on it and nearly got catapulted off because the front and rear wheels were so badly out of shape. I've managed to deal with the rear wheel actually. I was very surprised to find that 39 of the 40 spokes undid and freed off, and the 40th one I just had to put the electric heat gun on for a little moment onto the nipple, and that undid as well, and I freed them all off, and I was able to pull the wheel back into shape and retrew it, and even move the rim across towards the sprocket side by nearly ½ inch, because someone had obviously made a hodgepodge of repairing it or rebuilding it in the past. There was also some chrome spokes and some galvanized spokes in there, so someone had been at it. Same as the front wheel actually, which I've got here now. This has got mostly chrome spokes on one side with a few odd ones, and they're all galvanized on the other, so someone's been at these wheels at some point in its 70 odd year history. Anyway, not surprising. I've got the dial gauge rigged up there, and I'm not really interested in showing readings, although I did check the vertical runner and it was actually 2mm, but this is more to demonstrate the throw that we got there. Now that is the vertical throw, you can see it, we don't need to measure it. That noise is where the rim just touches the probe from the dial gauge, and also we should be able to see that there's also about as much side to side throw. Now I measured that vertical throw and it's 2mm, so I'm hoping here to get the spokes and nipples freed off from each other and all moving, and attempt to adjust this out and hopefully get a properly round and concentric wheel once more. So watch this space, and hopefully I'll have an update on it one way or another soon. Just to pick up on the story of this front wheel from the 1939 Royal Enfield 500 Model J, which we saw in another clip which I'll probably join to this one. We saw it where I tested it, and there was a terrible amount of vertical and side to side throw in the rim when you spun the wheel, so much so which, when combined with the rear wheel being similar sort of condition when I rode the machine at 35 miles an hour or slightly more, it almost tried to catapult me off. So I had a bit of luck with the rear wheel, and I managed to move all the spokes, slacken them all off, get them moving, and actually adjust the rear wheel and fix it. And I thought, well, can I actually be that lucky twice? And well, long story short, I was. All 40 spokes got moving. I had to put the electric heat gun on quite a few of the nipples to warm them up to help loosen them a bit, but they all moved, they all loosened and freed off, so I've been able to slack them all off and start again with truing and adjusting the spokes to straighten the wheel out. And I've still got the dial gauge here, which before was sort of showing that there was a gap of some 2mm as the wheel was spun between the rim touching the end of the probe and not touching it. And now I've got the spokes are all adjusted how I want them, and the job's done. The wheel's ready to go back on. I'll have to check for a few if there's any protruding spokes and grind them back if I need to, and put the tyre and tube on obviously, but I'm very pleased with the result here. The radial run out is less than ½ mm now, rather than way over 2mm, which it was before. And I'll put the camera down here a moment, and I'll just move the dial gauge round to show to pick up the edge of the rim. Here we go. We're now going to look at the edge of the rim and spin the wheel again. And we're actually well under ½ mm side to side throw, and actually just more like just a little bit over ¼ mm. I've got my keen assistant there, she's checking it and just making sure all is well. Now lastly, I'm just going to play some music on it. Now the spokes on either side are of different lengths, so I don't expect the spokes on one side to play the same note or tone as on the other, but let's see that they all play the same sort of tone as each other on each side. So 20, we want to hear 20. There we are, 20 there, all sound pretty much the same as each other, and now the other ones. 20 there, all sounding pretty much the same as each other. So that tells me that there's equal tension on the spokes on each side relative to each other. And next job for me is just to check out, see if there's any of these need grinding back a little bit, because it's amazing how much some of them had to be screwed up or down to adjust them. And then I'll get the tyre and tube back on, check the balance of the wheel as well, like I did on the rear one, and hopefully it might render the machine rideable rather than being like the bucking bronco that it was last time I tried to ride it. So hopefully at some point I'll have an update on that as well. So next job for me and my little kitten Millie here to do is put a tyre on it. Well, here I am with that Royal Enfield 500 Model J again on the front wheel, which we've seen I've managed to true and sort out, but unfortunately I've got another hurdle to overcome, in that, rather like the rear wheel was actually, this wheel is offset rather dramatically to the left hand side of the bike. Funnily enough, where I had to move the rear wheel rim over to the left because it was too far to the right, this one is too far to the left and will have to be moved to the right. You can see it there, hopefully between the forks. I don't know how well this will come out on camera, but you can see that the edge of the rim is a good bit closer to that fork leg on the left hand side than it is to the one on the right, which has got a much bigger gap. So although I managed to true the wheel and get it running nice and true without wobbling around all over the place, I've got to now slacken the spokes, all the spokes on this side, and then tighten them all on this side, and probably have several goes at that to pull the rim over towards the right hand side of the bike by quite a margin. I reckon I'm going to have to move that over probably more than 1/4 of an inch, maybe about 3/8, or nearly a centimetre in metric speak if you prefer. So that's going to take me a little bit of time. I'll do that in situ with the wheel on the bike, then I'll take the wheel off, take it back over to the bench for checking and final truing, and then hopefully, assuming I can move it over far enough, which I hope I will, and I'll put the tyre back on and refit the wheel and balance it, and it will finally be job done. Well, here we are yet again with the front wheel from the 1939 Royal Enfield 500 Model J. In a previous video we saw that I'd actually managed to true the wheel and more or less get rid of any side to side or radial throw, as it had been very wobbly, and between it and the back wheel they both upset the handling to the point where the bike was very dangerous to ride. So I sorted that out, but when I put the front wheel in between the forks, minus the tyre and tube, just to check, I found that it was over to the left hand side of the bike. The wheel was offset to the left hand side of the bike by some 1/2 an inch off centre of the forks. So since that video I've had the wheel in between the forks, and I've slackened the spokes on one side and tightened them on the other to pull the wheel over towards the right hand side or brake drum side, and I've shifted it by nearly 1/2 an inch now, and it's all bar a whisker central between the forks, but I'm going to stop where I'm at because I don't want to slacken off the spokes on one side anymore and tighten them up more than I have done on the other side. It's within a whisker now, so I'm happy with that. So here I am, I've just trued it again, and we have a look at this. This will give us the side to side run out, which is about 1/4 millimetre. So that's better than the 1/4 inch or so it had in the beginning. Now I'll just put the camera down here and I'll set the dial gauge up to give us the vertical or radial run out. Let's see what we've got there. And apart from the one little blip which actually coincides with where the ends of the rim are welded together, we're within 1/2 millimetre there as well. The little blip is in addition to that, but it is just a tiny blip where the weld is, so I'm happy with that as well. You see that now is spinning far more true than it ever did before. And just to check again, 20 dings on each side on the spokes. They're all pretty near, not 100% exact, but within a gnats, I would say. And on the other side, a slightly different note because they're a different length of spoke, of course. Plenty of them all playing pretty much the same note as well. So what I'm going to have to do next, once again, is grind off any excess off these spokes. You can perhaps see how much is sticking through, how much excess we got poking through there. This wheel has been respoked at some time by somebody, and I'm not quite sure of the origins of the spokes or even the rim for that matter. Something's been done to it, but we've got some chrome spokes, some galvanised ones on this side. On the other side they're all galvanised. I think someone's rebuilt this wheel at some time and not done a very good job of it. And well, the handling on the bike was atrocious, because with the rear wheel being offset to the left by about, not quite 1/2 inch, and the front wheel being offset to the right by about 1/2 inch, the wheels were more or less not far off 1 inch out of step with each other from one side to the other, as well as the buckles and bumps that they had in the rims and everything. So I'm hoping when the time comes to have a ride on this machine, it should be a great improvement. And here we have one 1939 Royal Enfield 500 Model J with both its wheels straightened out and not wobbling and shaking all over the place like they did before. The rear one, I've taken vertical and side to side buckles out of that. So it's running nice and truly now, not shaking from side to side or up and down. And I was pleasantly surprised that all 40 spokes in that one came loose and were able to be adjusted, so there's a job done on that one. I thought my luck would probably run out on the front one, considering that there hasn't even been any chain oil flung on it over the years. But all 40 spokes moved. Some of them had to be heated with an electric heat gun, and they all freed off and moved. And I actually had to move this wheel over by about 1/2 inch to the right, because it was too close to the left hand side of the bike by, well, 1/2 inch. And ironically, the rear wheel had to be moved in the other direction, so between the two of them they were 3/4 or even close on 1 inch out of step with each other along the sort of longitudinal line of the bike. Anyway, I got that sorted out, and I've got a video showing the run out on this wheel earlier as it was, and this is it now, all back in place with the tyre on. And also, if we can see it, it's a bit dark, I'll get my torch on again. The gap between the tyre and wheel and the fork legs is more even and equal on both sides now, rather than the wheel being over this way, like I say, about half an inch out of line. So between getting the bumps and shakiness out of the wheels and balancing the rear one that was badly out of balance, the front one's pretty well balanced actually, lining them up with the bike and everything, I'm expecting it to ride far more pleasantly than it did last time when I got up to about 35 miles an hour and it tried to throw me off. So all being well, at some point in the future I might get a ride on this and prove that it's now a lot safer and a lot more comfortable to ride. So that's real progress, because I'd never have thought that either of those wheels, the spokes, would have unscrewed and loosened and been adjustable, but there we are. Life's full of surprises and I'm not complaining about that one. So we've now got a good set of wheels on this thing, structurally sound, and it would have been a shame to put new wheels on it, new rims and spokes, because then the rest of the bike would have looked out of place with nice shiny new wheels. So as it is, it's kept its what they call patina. Everything looks about the same age and as if it's all been sort of weathered and used together from day one, and it's all structurally and mechanically sound, which is always nice.